Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our Easy WTF. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome, and I hope you guys will learn as much as I will this morning. I might not be a familiar face to many of you. My name is Bonolo Medise, and I am the newest member at Team Easy, specifically under the marketing team. And this morning, I will be joined by one of South Africa's top 3 financial planners, Craig. He has joined the Team Easy on a full-time basis, and he will be giving us some insight and education this morning on retirement annuities. So let's get to it. Good morning, Craig. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for giving us insights and teaching us on retirement annuities.
Awesome.
So I'm not going to waste time. I'm sure people are waiting and looking forward to the session like I am, and I'm definitely hoping to learn a lot this morning. Guys, please remember to ask your questions in the Q&A section, which is down below on your screens. So yeah, let's get to it. So good morning, Craig, again, and please kindly give us an insight on retirement annuities. What are they?
Hey, Bonolo. Yeah, so even though you're new to the team, it feels like you've been around for a very, very long time. So yeah, great to have you around. So retirement annuities, yeah. So retirement annuity is a popular investment vehicle that's used by the South African investor, and it's generally used, like the name says, specifically for retirement purposes. So, but if you don't mind, I'd like to go back in history a little bit and just break down, the word retirement and where it was invented, if that's okay, because I think it's going to help in just understanding, the structure and the reasons behind the sort of investment.
Absolutely.
Cool. So retirement was invented back in 1889 by the Germans. And, back then it had a lot more to do with health reasons, over economics. And the reason why they sort of started the retirement journey was back then things were a lot more labor, intensive than they are today. So you'd find, people got to a point in their lives where their bodies just weren't able to, do the labor anymore. So the Germans then decided that we're going to get them to retire at a certain age, and we're going to replace them with somebody who's younger and fitter, and we're going to be able to get more out of the younger person. So then the Americans cottoned onto this in about the 1920s, and they set a retirement age, funny enough, of age 60. But that didn't quite work out because the life expectancy for Americans in those days was only 58 years old. So the Americans literally had people working, their whole lives. So we've come a long way since then. Globally now the life expectancy is around 73 for males and females. And I think a lot of us on this webinar today, or there could be a few of us on this webinar today who are going to live until 100. So a lot has changed with medication and the way we eat and the lifestyles we live. So we just need to apply more care in the way that we are, investing for the future, because we are, living longer. We're also using, the word work-life balance, a lot more than we used to in those days. So we need to incorporate that into, the way that we're investing, within retirement structures. Manola, there's also, there are a lot of countries out there who look after people in retirement. So retirement planning is, less important in their lives, or it's non-existent in their lives. And here in South Africa, we are so blessed in many, many ways But the one area that we do need to work on is retirement, because our government unfortunately won't be able to sustain us financially, in our older years. So enough of that history lesson. So if we take the word retirement annuity, and if I could change it to be a little bit more relevant in today's times, I'd call it, my freedom fund. So an investment that is going to give me freedom in my later years. My flexible fund, so it's going to allow me to have a little bit of flexibility and to do I want to work half day? Do I want to change my career and move into something which I'm a little bit more passionate about? My choice fund, so it's going to give me choices, later on down the line. But the one that I really love is my vintage fund. So this is like you are maturing like a good wine, and when you become vintage, then you are entitled to draw an income, from the specific investment. But I think for today's purpose, let's stick to retirement annuity, because that is what it is, but it has a little bit more meaning in today's times. So we've touched on retirement. If we look at the word annuity, so the second part of the investment. So annuity means paying an income. So essentially, down the line, the investment is going to change into something which is going to provide you an income for when you decide to retire, when you decide to stop working, or you decide to access the investment. So it's really your own personal, pension fund. So you're essentially making your own investment decisions. Manolo, you decide how much you want to contribute. You decide where you want to invest your money and how you want to invest it and who you're going to be using to do that. So while you're younger and you're building up to become vintage one day, you're either going to contribute monthly or in lump sums, or you could do a combination of both. And those contributions are then going to accumulate over time, earning interest, compounding in growth, and that was going to be able to provide you an income for one day. So structurally, you're going to be able to access the investment when you get to 55. That's the earliest you can access the funds in a retirement annuity. And yeah, I think it sounds like it's quite late on in life, but I think with what we've spoken about now, with people living longer and potentially retiring later, 55 is around the corner, and it's fairly young in terms of where we are in today's society. Also, retirement annuities, they have this, it's called it like a legacy type issue where, people think that it's a non-performing, investment. But things have changed massively over the years where, costs have been brought down. There's more flexibility with retirement annuities. There's more choice. So there really is no difference in investment structure from a cost point of view or returns point of view by investing in a retirement annuity versus another type of investment out there. And as you know, at Easy Equities, we have amazing retirement annuity structures, and there's a lot of additions that are coming soon. So watch this space.
Wow, I don't know the history of retirement annuities, and I know I'm sure many of our attendees didn't know that about retirement annuities. So thank you so much for that. Why would investors consider having a retirement annuity?
Yeah.
Why would I consider? At what age?
Yeah, so great question. So I think there's pros and cons to a retirement annuity, like there are with any other investment vehicle out there. I've been sort of planning for clients for quite a while now, and I literally haven't come across a client who has been able to retire financially well off who had just one investment. So in other words, they had a diverse range of investment vehicles to serve a different purpose. So I've also had clients where 90% of their funds were tied up in pension funds from their company. And they admitted when they were able to retire that they would never have been able to if it wasn't for their pension fund at work. So it's a forced way of savings, and I think that's quite important, Benola. It's a forced way of investing, and it's a forced way of making you invest for your future self. And I like to call it sticky money. So it's stuck there. It's not available, which is a good thing when you're talking about retirement, when you're talking about long-term investment. And we all know, I mean, there's this ugly stat in South Africa where only 5% of South Africans can afford to retire. And I think a lot of that is because of the fact that South Africans, we're great spenders, we're great lenders. We're great at, buying those new cars, wearing, the latest clothing, upgrading our homes. So all those are great things for the now, but we forget about the vintage us, in 20, 30, 40 years time. So we need to really empower ourselves to become financially free in the future. And this comes through savings, Benola. So if I can just tell you two quick stories. I mean, my dad, hopefully he's not listening, but he's a good example here where he earned well, but he also spent well, through his career, and he invested in business opportunities. And unfortunately, most of them didn't work out. He's now 75 years old, and he has to continue, with no choices. He has no freedom. And I firmly believe that if he had a retirement annuity, that would have protected him from himself and the possible bad luck that he had and the decisions that he had made, because he wouldn't have been able to have accessed that money. I've got another good friend of mine who's a little bit older than I am, but when he was 60 years old, he was also in the financial services industry, and he decided to liquidate all his investments and invest in a very popular restaurant chain. And a year down the line, he lost everything. Unfortunately, the business failed. He was sequestrated, and they managed to attach everything that he owned, including the wine bottles on his wine racks. And now here's a man at 60 years old who plowed his whole savings into a business, and it failed. But his whole life, he had invested in a retirement annuity, and one of the massive best benefits with the retirement annuity is that creditors can't attach it. It's protected. So here he is now, 10 years down the line, and he's living a very comfortable retirement. He lost everything late on in life, but he was still able to earn an income from his retirement annuity. So those are just a couple of benefits, I guess, Benola. And what age? So if we break it down, if we look at a student, probably not the right time, probably got some debt, got to pay for studies, jawling, it's not a priority to invest for down the line. Maybe something like a tax-free savings account or a share portfolio would be, more attractive to a student. Somebody in the early 20s, if they started working and the company doesn't have a pension or provident fund or group structure, then definitely a retirement annuity is a good place to go. And somebody who's sort of middle-aged, 100% for me, a retirement annuity is really, really an important, component. And, just lastly, Benola, on this topic, I think, why, in terms of why retirement annuity, there's massive tax benefits, with it. So any contribution that you do make, to a retirement annuity are tax deductible against your income. But we can get into that a little bit later. There's also no tax on the growth, so you don't pay tax on the interest, dividends or capital gains within the investment. And then even though you pay tax on the income you receive when you retire, it's normally at a much lower tax rate, which is also beneficial. And when you get to retirement, you only pay tax on the portion that you actually are withdrawing from it. So there are some really, really nice, tax incentives that government has given us to invest in retirement annuities.
So I hear you touch on the tax-free savings account. I know we're going to touch on that in the next episodes, but maybe give us a brief idea as to why are RAs better than a tax-free savings? What are the
So,
benefits of an RA over those of a tax-free savings?
yeah, it's a good question, Manolo. And yeah, I think you know, today or Thursday, you know, maybe you and I can dig into that a lot deeper. But I think it goes back to that they don't compete against each other. You know, so I think the industry has a lot of this, you know, which one is better, an RA versus a tax-free savings account, and I think they're both amazing investment vehicles, and they need to be used in conjunction with each other. They shouldn't be seen as enemies. They need to be seen as families, and investors need to use them, you know, together rather than, you know, choosing one over the other.
Great. And then are there any limits to how much I can contribute to my retirement annuity?
Yeah, so SARS, you know, works off a percentage, Manolo. So they work off a percentage of your gross income. So gross is your income before tax. And he says that you can contribute 27.5% of your gross salary to any retirement vehicle. So when I say retirement vehicle, that could be your pension fund, your provident fund, and your retirement annuity. So yeah, then he has capped it to 350,000 Rand a year if you're in that fortunate position where, you know, not many of us are. But yeah, 27.5% of your gross salary per year, and capped at 350,000. We're talking about contributions, but I think, I mean, you know, 27.5%, I mean, there aren't too many people who can get to that position. But if, you know, if we had to look at, you know, the average, you know, contribution, if you were employed at a company that offered a pension or provident fund, you'll probably look at about a 15%, you know, contribution rate of your salary towards a pension fund. So for those on the webinar who are not in a position where a company does offer that, work on 15% of whatever your gross salary is, and that should be applied to a retirement annuity, and obviously all the tax incentives get kicked into that. But yeah, I mean, the next thing is 15% enough? Is it too little? But you know, then you need to incorporate all the other investments and all the other assets that you've got. The key is to start, no matter what it is. You know, at Easy Equities, there's no minimum. So, you know, just get that RA kickstarted, even if it's $100 a month, and start investing in that RA. And the sooner you do it, you know, the better it is, you know, going to be for you, you know, long term down the line.
Thank you so much, Craig, for that. Maybe we can look at some of the questions that our attendees have.
Sure.
I will pick one, and there's one from John. And he asks, what costs are involved in switching from one Easy RA product to another Easy product, RA product?
Okay, so I think would he mean they're switching, moving it from another company into an Easy retirement annuity, hey?
I would assume yes.
Yeah. So there's no costs to move it from Easy Equity side. There could be a penalty, you know, from the company that you are moving it from. So there could be, yeah, and John would have to get that that cost from the company that he would be moving it from. It's the whole process is called a Section 14 transfer. So he would have to go to them and tell them that he would like to do a Section 14 to another provider, and they would give him the documents. And on that document, it would state, you know, what the costs are, what the penalties are to do it. The only penalty these days are in more insurance-related retirement annuities. So there, the difference is with the big insurance companies, they pay commissions, you know, upfront to the brokers. So if you're canceling or moving it away from that insurance company now, they're going to penalize you, unfortunately, for doing that. So that's where that penalty comes in. And just so that John knows, like once he moves it onto the Easy platform, if he then down the line wanted to move it to another platform, there's no cost on Easy side because there's no commissions, you know, involved on our platform. and really, really low cost running costs on the Easy Equity platform to have the RA as well.
Awesome. And then I saw a question from Taps. He says, how many RAs am I allowed to hold in my lifetime?
Yeah, so you can have as many as you like, Bonolo. It's obviously it's not ideal, to have those. A lot of what I used to do is consolidate retirement annuities, because if you find one that is really well structured, you can invest in very different ways within one retirement annuity. So you don't have to pay 5 or 10 costs in different retirement annuities. Find a really well-structured retirement annuity and just rather change the way that you invest it within that retirement annuity. So essentially, yeah, but you only need one.
Awesome. And I see Itati says he wants to find out more when we say lump sum. How much are we talking about roughly?
Okay, so lump sums for us is a once-off payment. So you can make as much as you like. If you haven't contributed the whole year towards any form of retirement funds, you could literally do a lump sum of 350,000 Rand, to get the full tax deduction on it. So you can make any lump sum amount that you want to within that prescribed limitations of it.
Awesome. I know you touched on about the funds being available at 55, so forth. Nadine wants to know if she already has an RA and should she look at another RA, let's say age 63, which she is now. At what age would she be able to withdraw the benefits?
Yeah, so it's a good question, Benola, as well. So some companies, you would have entered into a contract with them, and it is usually the insurance guys, where they said that retirement age from this annuity is 65, for example. So if you wanted to retire from it a little bit earlier, you would pay a bit of a penalty on it. But to answer her question from a legal point of view, she can retire from her RA from when she was 55. So she can retire from it right now. And to start up another one, I wouldn't retire from one and then start up another one. I think she just needs to look at her investment structures and decide whether she needs the income from one. If she does need the income from the one retirement annuity, then I wouldn't see the reason to then start another retirement annuity. Rather keep contributing to the one that she has for as long as you like, because there's no expiry date. And also, you can keep that retirement annuity until you're 80 or 90 without needing to withdraw from it. So you can keep it there and not draw from it for your whole life if she chose to do that.
Awesome. And I see Khomota says, is there a set interest rate that one can get for the RA, and does it vary with time like the share prices?
Sure. Good question. Hey, we could spend a lot of time talking about that. So a retirement annuity is just the vehicle. Okay, so that the retirement annuity just creates the platform and the tax incentives in it. So once you've chosen the retirement annuity, you then have a lot of freedom and a lot of choice in how you invest underneath it. Okay, so there's a thing called Regulation 28, which means that you have to invest according to certain limits. But he could take his contributions and he could invest in a money market fund if he wanted to. And then the money market fund, you could maybe get 4, 5, 6% interest every year if you would like that. But with it being more of a long-term investment, looking after the vintage you'd want to be in something which is more equity-based, more property-based, has a little bit more offshore in there. There is more risk and more volatility in it, but over the long term, it's going to give you a better return than, say, a money market fund in the short term. So he has choice. He can invest. You have to invest it. Okay, so it's not like parking money in a bank account. He has to choose an investment, an underlying investment, which money market, if he's conservative, he can choose a money market fund.
Awesome. And then Zetu says, what is the most effective way to calculate how much I have in terms of my lifetime contribution to the tax-free savings account with Easy? And is it a good idea to use the tax-free savings as a means to diversify my retirement savings? Zetu is 27 and just cancelled his TFSA with another institution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every year we've got to report to SARS on how much we've contributed to our tax-free savings and to our retirement annuities. So at Easy Equities, we can give you what you've contributed to your tax-free savings and your retirement over the years with us. But if you have, 2 or 3 other tax-free savings and 2 or 3 other retirement annuities, you're going to have to get a consolidated report from SARS to show what your contributions have been over time. And it's a great thing. It's a great point actually to keep record of those personally and to make sure that you don't exceed the tax-free savings contributions as well as your retirement annuity contributions. Yeah.
Obaking asks, if one has contributed the full 27.5% of gross income, what is the expected tax return?
Yeah, so that's a difficult question to answer, Banola, because again, that depends on how you've invested your money. So how you've chosen to invest your retirement. So if you've chosen to invest in a money market fund, you can take that 6% and compound it, over the next, 20, 30 years that you're investing for. Whereas if you go into an equity, based portfolio, that might be able to give you 10, 11, 12% per year over the next 20, 30 years, which looks sizably different. So I think the simple answer there, Banolo, is that when you're investing for retirement, you want to make sure that the investment choice that you've made is going to beat inflation. Okay, because if you look at inflation, let's say inflation on the high side is, let's say it's 6%, okay, and you've put your money in a money market fund that is giving you 6%, you essentially aren't getting any growth. Your money is just keeping up with inflation. So you're going to be able to buy the same loaf of bread today in 30 years time. So what you want your investments to do is you want them to beat inflation by a certain percentage, and we call that the real return. Okay, so if inflation is 6 and you're getting a 10% return, the difference at 4% is what your real return is. So your money is actually growing by that 4%. So I encourage all investors on here, focus on the real return over long term rather than money market returns.
Awesome. And I think we'll take the last question from Obed. He says, is there a plan to launch an RA product that allows us to choose underlying ETFs subject to the Regulations 28 compliance?
Yeah, great question. It is something that's on our radar, Banolo. There's lots of development and lots of tech that needs to be done in the background to be able to do that. The big component there is that you do need an asset manager to oversee your selection and be able to report back to the regulators to show that you are sticking within that Reg 28. So it's something that we would love to launch down the line, and it would be a great thing for our easy investors to have that choice to manage their own portfolio within the retirement structure. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, Craig, for such an insightful morning and giving us education on retirement annuities. I hope our attendees have learned as much as I have this morning. Guys, please do remember that if you missed this or you just joined us, this will be available on our YouTube channel, and we will be able to answer all of your questions post this live session. Thank you so much, everyone, and have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you,
tomorrow.
Manolo. Yeah, see you tomorrow. Cheers.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
later.